brought it up, Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians. Russian.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots, their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. Hope you all are having a great week. I know I am. Chris, how you doing, sir?
The horrors persist, but so do I.
As always, I expect nothing less. I missed you. I haven't seen you since GART.
I know. It's been 1 week.
One
That's
week.
so strange. It feels like it's been much longer than that.
It does. That's what she said. But yeah, it was fun seeing you at GART. GART was awesome. And by the way, I was supposed to announce, I'm going to do this right away before I forget. Our GART 8 tickets are officially on sale as of this moment. So we gave people with tickets to the last conference a chance, about 24 hours to get their tickets. Actually, it's more than that. It was like 36 hours. And now it's open to everybody. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/events. Get your GART 8 tickets. It's coming up already in like 6-ish weeks or less.
We are going to make Plymouth rock.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Apparently there's some like hidden statue that's like super huge that nobody knows about, that they took forever to build, that we have to go see. Did anybody stop you at GART and tell you about that?
No.
No? Okay.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I had like 4 people tell me. I don't even remember what it's called. I'm just going to Google big statue Plymouth and see what comes up. But apparently it's really impressive. I don't know.
Into it.
Yeah. But anyway, lots to talk about tonight, man. I don't even know where to begin. We're going to talk about the Autopen stuff. We got Alien Enemy Act. We got wartime powers, which kind of ties into that, obviously. The DOJ stuff is really weird. Trump going there and give that speech. I want to play a couple clips and discuss the reasoning behind that. I mean, just a lot to discuss. So I'm going to get to our first 2 sponsors. We have another sponsor later, so don't let me forget. And then we'll get right to it. And first up, we got CB Distillery. CB Distillery's VIP sale is on. For a few days only, you can save up to 50% on everything with code RUMBLE. If better sleep, less stress, and pain relief after exercise sounds good to you, you need to hear about CBD from CB Distillery. They have plant-based solutions for just about everything: sleep, stress, mood, focus, even pain after exercise, all made with high-quality, clean ingredients. They even have CBD for pets. Many of you are feeling already the difference, especially with the sleep products. It's my favorite. If you're still tossing and turning at night or struggling with another health concern, make the change to CB Distillery, and now's your chance to save big with code RUMBLE. But the deal doesn't last long, so don't wait. Visit cbdistillery.com, code RUMBLE, to save up to 50% on everything. Not available in Idaho, Iowa, or South Dakota, which makes no sense. But get your products, guys. Next up, we got, let's do rattlesnake meats. I love their meat. Stop funding the cartel, guys. We're probably going to talk a little bit about cartels tonight, but you're thinking of a different kind of cartel. Not the ones at the southern border. We're talking about the 4 globalist multinational meat packers that control 85% of America's beef supply. Their beef, who knows where it's really raised? There's a better way. You can buy directly from a real American rancher. At Rattlesnake Meat Company, they deliver premium 21-day aged American beef straight from the ranch to your door. No mRNA, no added hormones, no pink slime, no meat glue, just real beef, born, raised, and processed in Kansas. Every dollar you spend is a vote. Vote for the American rancher. Vote against the globalist agenda. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/meat, MEAT, and use promo code BADLANDS20 for $20 off to take back control of your beef. That's badlandsmedia.tv/meat and BADLANDS20 at checkout. All right, man. I think before we get into any of this, if you guys watched the Liberty Den last night, you saw my disappointment in Rep. Anna Polina Luna. And I haven't talked to you about it, but I'm going to show one more time that she stole my damn meme. She is flirting with me, and there's no denying it now, and I don't know what to do about it.
First off, great meme. Really, really well done. And
it was Grok, but yeah.
Well, obviously. Well, not obviously Grok, but obviously AI.
Yeah.
It reminded me immediately of the Biden hand passing through the microphone outside of the White House, or the quote unquote White House, you know.
Let me pull that video up. I think you just posted that in another chat, right?
Yeah. Brad. It's funny. I searched for it and found a post by Brad from a few years ago.
And that is interesting, because this video is clearly some sort of green screen. Like his hand going over the mic, behind the mic. I mean, this is so weird.
Yeah. It is so weird.
And so him, obviously Trump getting hit in the face with a mic.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's wild. I mean, all the discussion is about like, what if it was tipped with ricin or something,
Yeah. I mean, that was my first thought. But this is crazy. They literally filmed him answering questions from reporters and just put it in front of a green screen as if it was real.
Well, I mean, what part of it was real? We might as well just go straight into the Autopen. Yeah. But
yeah. Okay.
No, we can go back to your meme first.
No. That's all I wanted to say.
Lots of people have been stealing that meme today, huh?
Oh, it's everywhere. Instagram, DC Drano, real class act.
It's so weird
4 tweets after
that they don't just repost the original content.
Isn't that nuts?
It's like they don't want people to know where all of their supposed ideas come from.
That it would seem to be the case, man. But whatever. Eventually people will figure it out. He got called out a lot. He actually ended up like later on being like, oh, post credit or PC Patel Patriot. A lot of people scroll through to find out who should get the credit.
Right. Yeah, especially a day later.
Yeah. Actually, it was fairly shortly thereafter. So thank you to everybody. And here's the thing. I don't even care because like this stuff happens no matter what you do. I get more upset when people steal information and claim it as their own, like that CR bill that I went through and found shit on a while ago and Benny Johnson stole that. Like that stuff actually pisses me off. It's not that frustrating. It's just hilarious that Anna Paulina Luna did it because
Una Banca.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, if we can do that rant thing again tonight if you want.
I don't think we have to do that,
but we need to set a higher limit because we can't do like 100 of those for $2 each,
Right. Yeah, that's not going to work.
So I'll let you set that limit.
It's such a weird business in the first place. So we should we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I
don't think we should make any rules.
I'm down with that. I'm not a rule follower anyway. Okay, let's talk about the Autopen stuff since Biden's presidency was fake. Anyway, we talked about this a little bit on Wednesday when the stuff was first starting to break. The thing it reminded me of right away was when Mike Johnson was talking. He was doing an interview. He wasn't talking about his package, but he was talking about that meeting he had with Biden. And you know what? I might as well just find it and play it. Let me see. Oh, I got to show you this. Somebody brought this to life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Okay. Here we go.
What a strange world we live in now.
I know. Okay, here it is. Take a listen.
Real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, 3 weeks ago. He goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that.
Okay, so that's one thing to think about. Now, Trump has made a couple comments on the pen as well. Let's listen to these.
This was a fluke. This was something that if we had a competent president, it would not have happened. The man was grossly incompetent. All you have to do is take a look at he signs by Autopen. Who was signing all this stuff by Autopen? Who would think you signed important documents by Autopen? These are major documents you're signing. You're proud to sign them. You have your signature on something in 300 years. They say, oh, look, can you imagine? Everything was signed by Autopen, almost everything. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. So should have never happened.
Well, there's number one. I got one more. Then we can discuss a little bit.
But you don't use Autopen. It's number one, it's disrespectful to the office. Number two, maybe it's not even valid because, who's getting him to sign? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. If he did, all of these bad things wouldn't be happening right now. But
there you go. It's just wild to me. I mean, My one concern, I said this Wednesday, and I know we've talked about this before, is great. His entire presidency was illegitimate, but let's not make the fact that he didn't sign anything the reason he's illegitimate and all those things were illegitimate. Let's make it about the fact that he didn't actually win the election in 2020.
That's right. Yeah. That's the most important point by far. And then there's two theories of the case that evolved from that. Are the people pushing this narrative about, and it's not only the Autopen, Andrew Bailey, the attorney general from Missouri, basically like requested that the DOJ open a case on Biden's dementia, and the Autopen stuff is kind of part of that. So there's these two avenues for how Biden's executive actions and the stuff that he signed could be nullified through this process. So is this story being pitched to provide a cover story for the eventual nullification of the Biden presidency in order to maintain the system? Or is it just a step-by-step process to getting us to that point so that the public can understand that the presidency must be nullified regardless of whether or not he was illegitimate? And then we get up to that point later on. I don't know, man. I totally get that a lot of people want to be like, yes, of course, this is just the plan. It's just the narrative rollout. I get the case. I get it. I just don't know why we would be giving the benefit of the doubt on all this stuff for that reason over and over and over again, when it is only theoretical. And it might be a theory that proves to be true. And of course, it's fit many patterns over time. It's also a very easy theory to fit against patterns because it can be used to explain anything.
Yeah. I mean, for a while there, especially when Trump was out of office, there were things that we saw that I'd be okay, like, maybe we need to be patient and see how this plays out. Maybe this is part of the plan and stuff. I think we've evolved past that a little bit. But when it comes to this scenario, the thing that you talk about a lot is it's like all this stuff would have been happening whether Trump was in here or not. And then Trump comes in and he takes it the direction he needs to go whenever he needs to do that. And with this story specifically about the Autopen, eventually people were going to realize that he didn't sign anything. I mean, I think we've talked about Biden's signature matching multiple times, whatever, in the past, or maybe it was Jill Biden signing these things. Like, why does the signature look different than it did 10 years ago? I know we've had that discussion before, but here this is good. He's calling it out, but also at the same time, Trump is calling out the elections still. We haven't seen any actual movement or traction on things, but I have this post from him from the other day. I think this was yesterday. Crooked Joe Biden got us into a real mess with Russia and everything else, but I'm going to get us out. Millions of people are needlessly dead, never to be seen again, and there will be many more to follow if we don't get the ceasefire and final agreement with Russia completed and signed. We should probably talk about that whole situation too. But we'll get there later. There would have been no war if I were president. I just 100% would not have happened. Likewise, there would have been no October 7th with Israel. The pullout from Afghanistan would have been done with strength and pride and would not have been the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. It could have been a moment of glory. Also, there would not have been any perceptible inflation. Instead, we had record-setting, country-destroying inflation like we have never seen before. Also, we would have had an impenetrable border with very few illegals getting in. We're going to talk about that here shortly. Oh, what a difference a rigged and crooked election had on this country. And the people who did this to us should go to jail. God bless America and make America great again. We need to give the Storm Has Arrived some highlighting tips because that is pretty piss poor. But we also have let's have one more comment. So the DOJ thing, Trump going there and giving the speech was interesting in general. And maybe we'll get there next. Let's stay on this topic, then we'll get to the DOJ thing. But this is another clip from the DOJ speech he gave.
Honor and integrity and accountability back to the highest levels of the FBI, DOJ, and throughout our government. We're bringing our country back faster than anyone ever thought possible. We're working so hard at doing it, and we want fairness in the courts. The courts are a big factor. The elections, which were totally rigged, are a big factor. We have to have honest elections. We have to have borders, and we have to have courts and law that's fair. Well, we're not going to have a country. Crooked Joe Biden got us into a real mess with Russia and everything. Honor.
So he's still talking about it, man. So that's the angle where they probably would have stopped short of going as far as, let's look at the election. I don't think Trump's going to let them do it.
Going to let them do what? Sorry.
Like, so when you said before in the past about how some of the stuff we're seeing would have happened anyway, like delegitimizing Biden because his signatures were all Autopen, I don't think Trump's going to let us stop there. I think he's going to take us all the way and not let us stop short of exposing the election fraud.
Yeah, I certainly hope that's the case. I mean, I've always thought that eventually the fact that our elections are fake needs to be disclosed from all sides. So like if you are going into the Great Reset, right, like the tech dystopia, they also want people to distrust these elections so that they sign up for the solution proposed by that faction or that collection of factions. There has to be a better way for them to control elections that will convince the people, yes, your votes are definitely real. You have chosen all of this. Therefore, we can do whatever we want because you chose it. It's indisputable now. So it's a very complex problem. And the solution stage of that complex problem is going to be complex as well.
Think so?
I think so. We'll see.
What do you mean? Why do you think that? Because,
well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe I'm thinking differently. Because a solution, sure, I don't know what the solution is going to be. It probably will be complex, but to get to the solution, I think that's super easy. Like, let's just expose it. Just show how fraudulent our elections are, just in one place, anywhere, please. And that's
totally
it.
in agreement.
And then we can figure out the solution part after that.
Yeah. And I think that Trump has been able to make that case at any point for years. And you might remember back on the day that the Fani Willis indictment was handed down, Trump said, I'll have a press conference in Georgia and I'll go through all of the election fraud. Yep. And he said he was going to do that in 2 weeks. And here we are. I mean, it's a year and a half later. And
2 weeks, we can the spread, man.
Yeah, right. We can understand that as being, he often taunts the enemy with what he's about to do, makes them expend ammo, and then rug pulls and waits. And I get that that's a tactic, and I think it's a very effective tactic. But I also would like to get that information at some point, assuming that he has it.
Yeah. And that was an interesting one too, because they did not long after that put out that comprehensive report, which I don't feel like that's the one that he was talking about.
Right.
But it's almost like they tried to pass that off as if it was. It was like the Binder Phase 1 Epstein files release of the election fraud.
Yeah, it was all the stuff that was reported extensively in the post-2020 election period, even just within the few months between the election and January 20th of the next year. Yeah. All that information was essentially out. I mean, it's maybe got a little bit more meat on the bones. We also have never gotten the report on the Maricopa audit. There's so many things that are just kind of these unclosed loops from back then. Like, it's going to come all the way back around.
Yeah.
Close at some point. It just hasn't yet.
Is that the one that what's his name? Jovan did?
I don't know how much of a role he had in that. And that's just because I don't recall. It's been 4 years. It's not a slight on Jovan at all.
Because he did do some sort of audit, didn't he?
Yes. And I think he was part of the Maricopa audit, and they released the kind of like an executive summary sort of mini report with the big report held back by the Arizona Senate. And it's never been disclosed, but it doesn't mean it's not part of court proceedings somewhere.
That's right. I remember we had him on the Power Hour a long time ago. This was a long time ago, 3 years, which I guess that's not that long ago, but whatever. We had him on and we were talking to him is Trump aware of your timing of release? When are we going to get this stuff? And he basically berated us, and only the way that Jovan can. So I mean that that's an endearing way to say that. But it was well, obviously timing's everything, and obviously Trump's aware. He made us feel kind of dumb for even asking the question, which that's what I wanted him to. I wanted to make it seem obvious. I'll have to find that clip and post that again, because I completely forgot about that report. It's interesting. Yep.
So, but to bring it back around, it's got to be exposed at some point, and people have to understand, because I've said this for years now, but it's not just about who's in government making the rules. Like, yes, whether or not the people have actually consented to be governed by the people pretending to govern them is hugely important. But the other thing about the election results is that they are perceived to be the direct proof of who we are as a people and what we broadly believe. And the idea that we're a 50-50 country with the opinions on Trump and Kamala split down the middle, I mean, that's preposterous. And the only proof of that is fake elections and fake polls. So when that falls, man, I mean, obviously at that point, the polling will look like absolute nonsense, and it is nonsense, but what a strange thing.
This goes back to like what we know, that the Trump administration and their team, like, they have the real numbers, or, they have some model based on all of our public postings and interactions. Who knows what kind of data they can get on us, but they know what their mandate is. And that's part of the reason they're able to carry out their agenda, even though we're basically a 50-50 country, right? Like, they know they actually have the mandate, so they're going to keep pushing forward. Right. Although they appear to be stonewalled by judges along the way. It's the only thing stopping them from the golden age, is these rogue judges stopping the executive branch at every turn.
We'll definitely get into the role of judges when we talk about the Alien Enemies Act. But so here's the thing I was going to say, though, about the voting. So let's say that we have the solution that a lot of people want and push for, which is paper ballots, 1 day of voting, in person, voter ID. All of this is maybe videoed and live streamed, small precincts, counted on the spot, verified in all the bells and whistles that every election integrity person has ever asked for. So that's one of the solutions. And then on the other side, there's probably a set of solutions. And by the way, we want voter ID. The tech dystopians want everyone to have ID. They want real ID. Yeah. So it's not like that isn't aligned with their plan too. Yeah. And I think that that's the case in almost everything we see. It really is about perception, and then which way the public is going to push things as a result of that perception. But let's say they offer, we've been convinced that our currency needs to be, we can use the stable coins as an example because it seems to be headed in that direction, or based on Bitcoin or whatever. And we have the things that we would like to see happen. And then there are other people that like other cryptocurrencies for whatever reason. And let's say in their plan that one of those other cryptocurrencies was adopted as the currency of trade with, people think XRP is going to replace Swift, and that somehow that's a good thing. But
careful.
Yeah, right. I know. But if voting was tied to something like that, and they're like, well, you use it for your money, so of course you can trust it for voting. You're familiar with how the app operates. So use this blockchain app on your phone. Your phone has your identity inside it, so we know that this is legitimate. And then we see just whatever number they put out that mirrors the public polling. It mirrors what people say on Twitter. And all of a sudden we're like, well, these are our real world proofs that this app is going to be the perfect solution for voting. And we get ushered right into that thing. Everybody believes in the elections again, and off we go into the next phase of the old phase.
It's insane. I don't know, man. G-Money makes some decent arguments about the blockchain voting stuff.
Sure.
I don't know how you can trust it, because I feel like anything with technology at some point will get corrupted. Even stuff without technology, even same day voter ID, all those things, in person, whatever. They're going to be people who game the system. They're going to find ways to cheat still. It's about eliminating as much of it as you can, right?
Yeah. I also think, maybe there's some way that, so I'm not a proponent of direct democracy broadly, but if there were fewer functions of government in general, particularly the federal government, basically just the functions outlined in the Constitution, and not this sprawling bureaucratic, morass that we find ourselves in now that has its hands in all parts of our society. Maybe on those very limited issues, like we might be able to take advantage of a system like that in terms of more direct democracy so that the people's will is easily expressed. I'm not certain that's possible. Again, you mentioned the problem with the technology and people's faith in it in the first place. So that's a difficult issue, but
it's interesting to think about that though, because let's think about that for a second. You have a more of a direct democracy where a bill is out there and we get to vote on whether it passes. And then what that basically means is, well, first of all, it eliminates the need to actually have people in Congress, which I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
But all it would be like, not everybody's going to read the bills. And so you're just going to have influencers out there that get paid and they're going to be trying to put out BS, whatever, one way or the other to get people to pass a bill, which is essentially what our Congress does right now anyway. They're all social media influencers. They just try to convince their followers and their constituents or whatever that they passed a good bill. Like it's really not that much different.
That's right. So go ahead. Do you want to?
No, I've nothing else.
I don't want to cut you off. So I wonder, I think that you said the right thing. We don't really need representatives at that point. And this was something that we kind of addressed a little bit at GART, not our panel, but the second panel, the Ash and G Money panel.
Debate hour.
Yeah. There were other people on it, but
you just didn't notice.
Yeah. So they were, one of the coolest things about it though, is the discussion about how many, we're supposed to be representing, like each representative is supposed to have like 30 or 35,000. I can't remember which one of those it is. I think Brian said 35, but I always had in my head it was 30. So
we're gonna have like 9,400 representatives if we did it according to Brian's plan. Yeah.
Right. But if we actually had that and we didn't need them, if we had a real expression of the direct democratic desire of the people in a properly sized congressional district, where there was actually a community there and people in some sense being able to hold one another accountable or gauge the interest and understand the interests of their community broadly, maybe that's a much better solution. And, going back to, I love the Path to Liberty. Ash is right. Yeah. I love the Path to Liberty podcast from the 10th Amendment Center.
Yeah, they're good.
One of the things that they talk about is that part of the original intent was that the Congress be the democratic institution in the federal government, and that the Senate was basically the appointed representatives of the aristocratic class. And so now we just basically have totally illegitimate representatives across the board, all of them installed by the aristocratic class and truly like the foreign occupying government. And that's its own separate discussion. But thinking of Congress as the direct democratic branch expressing there to represent the expressed interests of the people, that's a different ballgame. And maybe something like that can work if we have legitimate voting that people can trust on the blockchain as it's decentralized and fragmented and removed to much smaller levels. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. A lot of people, advocate for what they want to see with our government. I don't think I've seen an actual idea yet that excites me. Like, yeah, that's the future government I want to see in this country. And I think it starts with exposing and fixing our elections. And it is very exciting to see that Trump is continuing to talk about it. The downside to it, like just being a neutral realist, right? Like I'm not cheering everything because I love Trump. Don't get me wrong. I love Trump, but also it's kind of the same thing he's been doing for 5 years. Right. And so I just want to see the action behind it. And this can kind of segue us into the DOJ discussion, because I'm trying to think of what Trump's purpose was for going there. He went to the DOJ and he had this like photo op. He was walking down with Pam Bondi. Let me put this on. Like he walks out with Pam Bondi and
all in white. Interesting.
Yep. Shows him a picture.
Isn't that like the repurposed mugshot?
Yeah, pretty well. I think it's his actual presidential picture, but he just same pose. Yeah, right. I want to hear what he says about this.
He looks like such a nice person. That's a rough picture.
That's
That's a rough picture.
We're waiting on JD to go up.
You say that's a real picture?
It's a rough picture.
Oh,
Yeah. And listen, so I know in our audience and in our community generally, there's kind of this like disagreement going on between whether, and we have not shied away from talking about it, but it's like either trust the plan that includes like what Pam Bondi's doing and been doing, or just trust what you see in front of you, and call it for what it is. And I don't trust Pam Bondi just because she's been put in the position of attorney general, because Trump has many times over put somebody in a position of power, let them shit the bed. Like Trump put Anthony Fauci as like the head of the task force, right? I mean, he probably didn't have to do that. He was in charge of the pandemic response, all those things. I don't trust Anthony Fauci. I mean, you can go through the line of people that he put in a position of power and they ended up being total failures.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if that's what he's doing here.
He probably also takes people's recommendations,
Yeah.
because that's a good way for him to understand what kind of people he's dealing with. Like,
absolutely.
We don't need to get off on a sidebar into Mike Pence's role in the COVID task force, right?
Yep.
But advice comes through channels. Who do you put out front for this? Who do you put out front for this? They want their people out front to sell
100%.
their case on the agenda. Now, they think that they're going to work no matter that, whatever they say is going to work no matter what, because they have the media and they have all of the systems of power behind that, pushing that view forward. And at the same time, bringing someone like Fauci out front destroys not only the credibility of his institution, but the NIH broadly, and then exposes him for his career of this same sort of corruption, the AIDS epidemic, et cetera. So, as long as we are geared toward truth and people are communicating what they learn, it doesn't matter what, like good or bad, whatever comes up, it's just going to keep pushing forward in the same way.
Yeah. So like in the chat, Wildboar himself is like, Fauci was an exposure op. Geez, this is easy. And only the condescending way Wildboar can. But how do we not know that's the same thing he's not doing with Pam Bondi, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I look at the binder op, we've talked about this, it seemed like she kind of just did that on her own. There's been no word from the White House whether or not Trump or the administration was filled in on what they were going to do. Also of note, I don't know if you guys saw the story, but Kash Patel set up like a direct line, even though he already has a direct line to the president. Like they were buddies, they text if they wanted to, but there was a story that they put out there. They wanted it out there that Kash Patel has asked for a direct line to the White House, which was bypassing his boss. Like that, it was complete. He could bypass his boss at any time he wanted, knowing how close he's been to Trump over the last few years. But there was a reason they put that story out there. They wanted people to be talking about it if it was a real story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Wall Street Journal, right? Like, was it
I don't
based
remember.
on like people familiar with the situation?
Yeah, like 600 anonymous sources or something.
Right.
But once you get over 300 or 400 anonymous sources, I feel like they're probably accurate. But no. But the point is, like, we don't know for sure if Pam Bondi's legit. But then you look at this DOJ thing, and Trump walks down the aisle with her, and looks at the picture, all buddy. Some of the reaction I'm seeing on Twitter is, we'll see, guys, Trump is giving his blessing to like just trust Pam, trust Bondi. And then he comes out there and he starts talking about all sorts of stuff. And I'm just sitting here, I'm kind of giving it some time, 72-hour rule, maybe more, trying to figure out like what was his actual reason here. But then the day before, and you go ahead and comment on this because I forgot to pull this up. I got to find.
I find the immediate like need to react and be like, yeah, see, we told you. He says she's great now. Like, just what's the purpose? You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to go into camps on these things and then choose sides and be like, my side's right, my side's right. Like, the entire purpose is trying to understand what's actually happening, not to cut ourselves off from one side or the other. You just watch new information emerge and see which model it maps onto and how that might increase your understanding in one way or another. Like I've been saying for years and years, just information among other information. We got new information, add that information to the pile of other information, look at it holistically. What do you have? Still a confusing situation. Cool. We'll just wait for more information to emerge.
I completely agree with you. And this is the story I wanted to show. I sent this to you earlier. The same day that Trump goes to the DOJ to give this speech. This came out. Grassley Johnson released records showing FBI obtained Trump-Pence cell phones, conducted sweeping interviews to advance anti-Trump Arctic Frost investigation. And I believe this is in the Arctic Frost, or Operation Arctic Frost, is the one about the fake elector scheme.
Oh,
and
really?
So I believe so. No, I'm going to double check that just to make sure. Oh, it doesn't even show up when you search it. No way. Of course it doesn't. Code name for, it's just an operation to target Trump. Was Trump still removed as an investigative subject? If so, which Justice Department and FBI officials other than Jack Smith later added him for prosecution? And interesting. I'll have to look more into that. But yeah, I just think it's interesting timing that like this is being disclosed, because I don't think we were aware of this prior. And now he's at the DOJ. And I know you didn't have a chance to actually watch the DOJ speech either. I'm going to try to find one clip that I saw. If you have
the
anything
Arctic
to say on
Frost
that.
thing is also just interesting because aren't Trump and Russia, like Trump and Putin, putting together some sort of energy deal for the Arctic?
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to have the control of the Western Hemisphere trade routes, you know, and basically the ocean around all of North America covered by the American military, it seems. So,
yeah, we're going to talk more about that too. I think this is the clip I want to share.
But first, we must be honest about the lies and abuses that have occurred within these walls. Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals within the ranks of the American government obliterated the trust and goodwill built up over generations. They weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to try and thwart the will of the American people. You remember the 51 intelligence agents that said, as an example, that Hunter Biden's laptop from hell came from Russia when they knew it came right from his bedroom. They knew that. It was a big lie, and they knew it so well. They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the president of the United States. With the help of radicals like Mark Elias, Mark Pomerantz, and these are people that nobody's ever seen anything like it. So many others, but these are people that are bad people, really bad people. They tried to turn America into a corrupt, communist, and third world country. But in the end, the thugs failed and the truth won. Freedom won, justice won, democracy won, and above all, the American people won. There could be no more heinous betrayal of American values than to use the law to terrorize the innocent and reward the wicked. And that's what they were doing at a level that's never been seen before. And it's exactly what you saw with Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and their cronies to do the building of the last 4 years. What they've ripped down is incalculable. But what you're going to build up is likewise something that will be breaking all sorts of records.
Our DOJ is going to break some records. Can't wait. Yeah, but I don't know. Weaponization of government going after that. I just don't get it. You know, I don't know yet what the reason is, but I'm sure we'll find out soon. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it though.
No. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, of course.
Yeah. Interesting. So we could probably tie this into I'm thinking what I want to go to next. I think maybe we should do the Alien Enemy Act, because if you think of what him going to the DOJ and being like, you MFers are the ones that took part in trying to destroy me, just like you kind of try to destroy our country, and how that ties into the Tren de Aragua stuff a little bit, plus the judicial branch and what they're doing right now. Maybe that's where we go. But first, before we do that, I don't want to forget about our final sponsor of tonight's show. So I'm going to do that right now. We got Love Litters up next. Attention all you Badlanders with purring pals and feathered friends. Say hello to Love Litters. 100% pure kiln-dried wood, free from chemicals and oh so kind to Mother Earth. No dust, no mess, and no toxins. Just a lightweight solution that's gentle on your wallet and even gentler in your home. Their biodegradable litter is crafted from wood destined for landfills, giving it a new purpose in your pet's life. Cats love it. Their astonishing formula works like magic to neutralize that notorious cat urine odor, keeping your home pine fresh and welcoming. For bird lovers, it zaps moisture from bird droppings, crumbling them away, all while being safe if pecked at or ingested. For reptiles and critters too, the mix is crafted to dilute the pine scent, ensuring those little lungs stay happy and healthy. Plus, every 30-pound bag of love litters will last up to 6 months, saving you money. Transform your pet care routine today. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/litter. That's badlandsmedia.tv/litter and breathe easy with a litter that loves your pet as much as you do. Thank you to all of our sponsors today, Rattlesnake Meats, Love Litters, and CB Distillery. But all right, let's we've been anticipating this for a while. Should I play that old video of ours where we talked
pretty
about
good? I enjoyed watching. I mean, maybe we could like speed it up, but yeah.
Okay, let me just find it. Okay, here we go. So just note the date here. This is on this show back on September 25th of 2003. Now, this is when, 2023. This is when Trump was on the campaign trail talking about the Alien Enemy Act. And we just discussed on the show. It's a longer video, so I will speed it up a little bit. Let's do, I don't know, just 1.25, see how it sounds.
And I'll also invoke immediately the Alien Enemies Act to remove all known or suspected gang members. We have tremendous numbers of gang members. MS-13, the worst gangs in the world, they say. Before we defend the borders of foreign countries, we must secure the border of our country. It's very simple. I will deploy the U.S. Navy to impose a fentanyl blockade.
Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government.
The big part of this here, guys, is he says immediately upon entering office, I'm going to implement the Alien Enemy Act. And the very first part of this is whenever there is a declared war. Okay, and that's a huge statement, in my opinion, because I believe he already declared the war.
We're at war. In a true sense, we're at war.
And that's what allowed him to implement devolution. But him saying that in the speech, it's almost a way of him acknowledging that in a way.
All of these sections are contingent on a declared war.
Yep.
Which is one of those many things that Trump did, and no one took him seriously because of how they think of their intelligence relative to his.
Yeah, it really is. It's a spell. They're under a spell. As long as they're smarter than Trump, he can't possibly have done any of these things.
Yep. Yeah, he can't do any of the stuff that he definitely did. You know, the other funny thing, John, when I think about timelines, and I think about how, you know, breaking news right now is something, generally speaking, that happened 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. You know, and a lot of times breaking news is even about an event or a story that happened much, much longer before that. That's a crazy phenomenon in itself. Now, if you know that phenomenon is happening and you're part of the program is to allow people to wake up on their perceived timeline, the one that's being kind of given to them by the means of public communication, like the media and through culture, then you may as well be, communicating the things you're doing on that same timeline as well. So when Donald Trump talks about the things he's going to do when he is finally back in office, it seems to me like a lot of those things are probably already implemented, and the consent and support for all those things will be created over however long it takes until the public understands exactly where we are.
I know a lot of people go back to like, okay, Congress has to declare war, right? That's not necessarily true.
There is a DC Circuit case, Campbell v. Clinton, setting precedent for what measures a president can take to repel foreign aggression. Recognizing that the president has no power to initiate or declare a war, observed that war may exist without a declaration on either side. In instances where war is declared against the United States by the actions of another country, the president does not initiate the war, but is bound to accept the challenge without waiting for any special legislative authority. Importantly, the court made clear that it would not dispute the president on measures necessary to repel foreign aggression. The president alone must determine what degree of force the crisis demands.
If another country, let's just use this not in the terms of like psychological warfare that we're kind of seeing. Trump told us that we're in the middle of a psychological warfare, right? I've played that clip quite a bit. I'll play it one more time. This is a great reminder.
Don't forget this persecution is being done by the same weaponized agencies that for 7 years have been running illegal psychological warfare campaigns against the American people.
So he says that our people, the American people, have been subject of illegal psychological warfare. If another country were to bomb the United States, right? Does the president have to wait for congressional authority to respond? No. So the same thing. If there's a psychological warfare being perpetrated by these agencies or other countries, or even some of our own people in office, does the president have to like go to those same people and get their authority to respond? Or, like they say here, does the court make clear that they would not dispute the president on measures necessary to repel foreign aggression, measures like implementing a continuity of government plan, maybe walking away and allowing this bullshit to take place for a while enough people wake up so that we can avoid a civil war, because everybody's under this brainwashing of the mainstream media and psychological warfare that was being put forth by those weaponized agencies and our own Congress.
I'm a wartime president.
These proclamations, like Lincoln's more famous Emancipation Proclamation and proclamations suspending the writ of habeas corpus, had the force of law, despite the fact that they didn't follow the legislative process. The constitutionality of these acts of presidential power continues to be debated to this day.
Trump made these moves, right? He made these moves to win people over so that they would be accepting of the moves he already made.
This is a war. This is a war, different kind of a war than we've ever had.
Man, I didn't even listen to the full clip when I saw it earlier, and I've like retweeted that a few times now when it was rumored. I forgot about the part about the psychological warfare that I included in there, because that's part of the executive order he just issued today on declaring, here, I'll pull it up, the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Aragua. Did you read through this thing? You
I did,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we could go on and on and on and read the whole darn thing, but the regular warfare part here is what stuck out to me in multiple instances, because that's psychological warfare. And that's included in this declaration here. This is nuts. Yeah, I'll read a little bit of it unless you have anything you want to comment on first.
No, let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay. Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization with thousands of members, many of whom have unlawfully infiltrated the United States and are conducting irregular warfare and undertaking hostile actions against the United States. He listed irregular warfare first. That is very notable. TDA operates in conjunction with the Cartel de los Soles, the Nicolas Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise based in Venezuela, and commits brutal crimes, including murders, kidnappings, extortions, and human, drug, and weapons trafficking. TDA has engaged in and continues to engage in mass illegal migration to the United States to further its objectives of harming United States citizens, undermining public safety, and supporting the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the Americas, including the United States.
So that's quite a list of claims there.
Yeah, and of all these brutal bad ones, he again listed irregular warfare first. Very notable.
And I mean, I think you would also probably argue that all of those are elements of irregular warfare. They're ways that a country can be torn apart that do not include just, direct kinetic warfare. And I mean, I think you're exactly right on. Let's continue. I want to, the invasion part of it, I think is so interesting, but let's continue.
Yeah. And I want to come back to the invasion thing too, because there was that previous executive order he signed on day one about guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion. And I think that obviously very much so ties into this, because we're about to see a court battle over this executive order here.
It's already happening.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. Well, I'm just trying to figure out where I want to read from. We'll start here. Over the years, Venezuela national and local authorities have ceded ever greater control over their territories to transnational criminal organizations. Glad to use that phrase as well, including TDA. The result is a hybrid criminal state that is perpetrating an invasion of and predatory incursion into the United States, and which poses a substantial danger to the United States. Indeed, in December 2024, Interpol Washington confirmed Tren de Aragua has emerged as a significant threat to the United States as it infiltrates migration flows from Venezuela. Evidence irrefutably demonstrates that TDA has invaded the United States and continues to invade, attempt to invade, and threaten to invade the country, perpetrated irregular warfare within the country, and used drug trafficking as a weapon against our citizens. I wish they'd be more specific about what they mean by this, because, we have our interpretation of what irregular warfare is, and if you even look at, I wonder if I have that Chris Miller clip pulled up. Dang it, I don't think I do. But Chris Miller's like, when I define irregular warfare, we're talking about hearts and minds. You're trying to win over the hearts and minds of the people to your cause. I want to know what they're referring to the Trump administration when they're talking about this. But anyway, based upon a review of TDA's activities and in consultation with Pam Bondi and all these other things, as President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, it is my solemn duty to protect the American people from the devastating effects of this invasion. Therefore, I, Donald Trump, President of the United States, by the authority vested in me in the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the Alien Enemies Act, hereby proclaim and direct as follows. And then he goes into, I mean, I could keep reading this stuff too.
I mean, we definitely should talk about Section 2, and it might be worth talking about Section 1 too. But in terms of the invasion, you know, the president is who declares the invasion.
Yep.
There's no other part of government that says we are being invaded unless you go down to the state level, and then governors can declare that their state is being invaded. And for whatever reason, we are told that there's some sort of court controversy about this, but there's legitimately no other part of government besides the president as the, you know, sole plenary authority of the executive branch who can make that determination. It's not the Congress. The Congress doesn't determine an invasion. They declare war. But if war is, if the nation is being attacked, a declaration of war is not required to defend the nation. That's the president's number one job as commander-in-chief. So they can't even restrict him from being able to do it, and neither can the courts. And so that's what they're trying. That's what the substance of the argument in the court today was one of the things that the judge mentioned multiple times in the reporting on the proceedings was that he wasn't sure that illegal immigration could constitute an invasion and therefore be used to trigger the Alien Enemies Act. I mean, all of this is so many steps of convoluted. The president doesn't need the Alien Enemies Act. He doesn't need a determination that illegal immigration can count as an invasion. He's the plenary authority. He says, that's an invasion. I have the authority as president and, you know, the person tasked with defending this nation at home to do whatever I need to do to repel this invasion. It's that simple.
Yeah, it is fascinating that like the same day that this was taking place, as planes were on their way out of the United States, this lawsuit, you know, this judge orders this, I don't know if it was a TRO or what it even was.
That's what it was.
Okay, a TRO, temporary restraining order, turning the planes around, trying to halt Trump's authority. And as you said, like this is something, this Campbell versus Clinton, we've been talking about that on this show for 3+ years. Like this is the interpretation from the courts that I think I thought we were going to see this devolution related, and I think we're about to get a civics class about this specific case. I think this is obviously going to be challenged up to the Supreme Court. It's going to have to be, you know, we need to define what the president's authorities are, like you said, but there's really no mincing of words in this. A war can exist without a declaration on either side based on the actions of another country. It is interesting they're using the phrase invasion. You know, Trump's very like honing in on the phrase invasion. But the court made clear that it would not dispute the president on measures necessary to repel foreign aggression. The president alone must determine what degree of force the crisis demands. Like how can you argue against that? You can't. Yet here's this judge who's trying to.
And of course, then you also have the chattering class in the media saying, well, you know, they always go to the Brennan Center or some like globalist immigration think tank, and they say with all of their astuteness, well, you're going to have a real hard time finding a court that's going to allow Donald Trump to do this sort of thing, as if that's necessary.
Exactly. And I don't know what this is going to lead to, but at some point we need some sort of break between this overreaching judicial branch that we have and what Trump is trying to do. I don't know what that looks like. Trump has issued a few executive orders trying to like limit these lawsuits preventing what he's doing from going on. This last week he issued one. Let me see if I think I might even have that pulled up here. It's this one, ensuring the enforcement of federal rule of civil procedure 65. Did you read through this at all?
Very, very little.
It's essentially requiring these people that are like suing the government to post security in case they lose. So mandates the court to require in all applicable cases that a movement for an injunction post security in an amount that the court considers proper to cover potential costs and damages to the enjoined or restrained party. If you read that very literally, like if they're trying to force a $2 billion payment from USAID to some foreign country, does that mean they have to post a $2 billion security to file the lawsuit? I don't know. That's probably up to the judge, and maybe that's giving the judge too much leeway anyway. But he's doing stuff like this to try to stop these judicial, proceedings from taking place. But we need something at some point to completely cut it off. It's got to come from SCOTUS, I'm assuming. But either way, and that's just the public story of it. I agree with you that Trump doesn't have to entertain any of this stuff. I don't think so anyway. But yeah, let's go back to this, because where I want to go with this is the stuff you would text me earlier, the stories, obviously. So I'm just going to read section 1, and we'll just go through, and then whenever you think it's a good time to tie it into that, we'll do it. So section 1 from the Alien Enemy Act. I find and declare that TDA is perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the territory of the United States. TDA is undertaking hostile actions and conducting irregular warfare, there it is again, against the territory of the United States, both directly and at the direction, clandestine or otherwise, of the Maduro regime in Venezuela. It's so interesting that he's mentioned here. I make these findings using the full extent of my authority to conduct the nation's foreign affairs under the Constitution. He's absolutely right in that. Based on these findings, and by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including 50 U.S.C. 21, that's the Alien Enemy Act, I proclaim that all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA are within the United States and are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the United States are liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. I further find and declare that all such members of TDA are, by virtue of their membership in that organization, chargeable with actual hostility against the United States and are therefore ineligible for the benefits of 50 U.S.C. 22. I don't know what that is. I further find and declare that all such members of TDA are a danger to the public peace or safety of the United States. I just want to look up what.
I got it. Section of the U.S. Code that deals with the time allowed for enemy aliens to settle their affairs and depart during times of war. So he's saying he can do it immediately because, and these are classified according to Trump and his executive order earlier as terrorist organizations.
Yep. And transnational criminal organizations.
Yes. And then the interesting thing is we had those New York Times articles after Trump's EO about classifying the cartels as terrorist organizations. The New York Times had a couple of articles, at least, that made the point that these cartel operations were tied up in legitimate businesses, like many transnational corporations. Of course, when the mob is infiltrating society, or the other way around, as it sometimes ends up being, they'll purchase legitimate businesses and use them as fronts for money laundering or whatever, or they'll buy businesses that help them in some way. And once there are a lot of those, then you have a significant portion of the economy tied in directly doing business with these terrorist organizations. And then, of course, one thing they often do with terrorist organizations is freeze and sanction any payments that are being processed in coordination with those organizations, which, watching the markets, have such trouble over the last week. I think that maybe the collapse was overstated in what it actually means, related to the Trump administration. But it seems like a whole lot of businesses are getting cut off from funding, perhaps, that keeps them operative. I don't know.
Yeah, they're telling us it's just they're scared because they don't know what the tariffs are going to do. That's the story.
Yeah. The implementation of tariffs was hurting the markets. Then when they were delayed, the markets were hurt because of confusion.
Whatever, man. I don't get it either. But the transnational criminal organizations and this executive order on the Alien Enemy Act brings me back to this. This is from part 19 of my series, when Trump talks about, taking additional steps to address the national emergency with respect to significant transnational criminal organizations. Remember, this executive order changed the definition of what it means to be a TCO. Change it from at least 2 foreign states to or 1 foreign state and the United States. So
that's very interesting.
Yes. So that means it could include Trinidad, Tobago, and Mexico. And as long as they're doing business with some of these domestic people, that counts as a transnational criminal organization, which opens them up to a bunch more sanctions. And as we're going to see in this EO allows them to seize assets.
I also, I think it's always important to remember one of those organizations that could have the 2 sides to it, one of them in cartel business and the other one in, public facing, supposedly legitimate business, is the pharma companies.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you're into, and when we talk about these organizations on that level, like cartels being linked to major transnational corporations, this is the kind of stuff that like these are big fish potentially.
Yeah. And it's not just them. What we're going to get into later is like our own government's involvement in working with these cartels, foreign cartels. Like when I see something like that old executive order on the TCOs, then this, and you look at it with the perspective of who in our government or maybe these agencies was involved in it. It's like a direct shot at those people. We'll get there though, because those articles you sent over, and I think you said you discussed that on a show recently. So you should have that link ready too to share out, because we'll probably only scratch the surface.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But I'm going to read a little bit more from the Alien Enemy Act here. I direct the Attorney General within 60 days of the date of this proclamation to prepare and publish a letter under her signature. I wonder if she's allowed to use Autopen for that, declaring the policy described in Section 1 of this proclamation as the policy of the United States, and attaching this proclamation. I direct the Attorney General to transmit this letter to the Chief Justice of the United States and Chief Judge of every Circuit Court of Appeals, the Chief Judge of every District and Territorial Court of the United States, each Governor and State and Territory of the United States, and the highest-ranking judicial officer in each state and territory of the United States. You said you wanted to discuss that specifically?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because it's setting out the legal position of the executive branch. And Trump just released an executive order on the 18th of February.
Don't think I have that up. I'll get it.
It was the one where he was making clear what it means, what this classification of so-called independent agency means. There are no independent agencies, but within that, he also made it clear and explicitly laid it out that the interpretation of the president and the attorney general would be the only legal interpretation for the executive branch. Like the SEC can't have a legal interpretation how they see the law compared to the president, the FTC, FCC, whatever agency of the executive branch you want to mention, they're no longer able to have a legal opinion that differs from the president and the attorney general.
Yeah, I'll read this. This is from it right here. This is this is ensuring accountability for all agencies. The president and the attorney general, subject to the president's supervision and control, shall provide authoritative interpretations of the law for the executive branch. The president and the attorney general's opinions on questions of law are controlling on all employees in their conduct of their official duties. No employee of the executive branch acting in their official capacity may advance an interpretation of the law as the position of the United States that contravenes the president or attorney general's opinion on a matter of law, including but not limited to the issuance of regulations, guidance, and positions advanced in litigation unless authorized to do so by the president or in writing by the attorney general.
So I think that with, the section 2 of the executive order from today, he's essentially saying every one of these courts will receive this opinion. And if they go a different direction, they will be doing so in direct opposition to the executive branch. So,
yeah. I agree with you, man. I want to keep going with this. I want to get to the part where, I mean, they're talking about what it does, directing the removal of all these people listed. Secretary of Homeland Security is going to be involved. Retains discretion to apprehend and remove any alien enemy under any separate authority. Talking about state, local, tribal officials. I want to find the part where it talks about seizure of assets, because that's another one. A lot of these executive orders, I always say there's this common misconception, like 13A18, the TCO one I just read, even Executive Order 13A48, where people are always like, oh, Trump's going to seize assets based on this executive order. Well, they don't do that. It freezes them, maybe sanctions them, but it's mainly designed to prevent them from participating in our financial system. That's what those are designed to do. This is the first one I've seen that directly says, like, we can seize the assets of these people. All property in the possession of or traceable to an alien enemy, which is used, intended to be used, or is commonly used to perpetrate the hostile activity and irregular warfare of TDA, along with evidence of such hostile activity and irregular warfare, shall be subject to seizure and forfeiture. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Shall we go to the Maduro aspect?
I think we should. I'm gonna do. Should we do this one first?
Sure.
Okay, because there's two of them, two articles that are pretty good, and you're the one who's read these. I didn't read all the way through them, so I don't know if you want to comment on them or what you want to say on them. But this is titled "President Maduro accuses FBI and DEA of creating and protecting notorious Venezuelan criminal gang Tren de Aragua." So understand what's being accused here. He is accusing the United States and some of our agencies of creating and protecting Tren de Aragua, the same group listed by Trump in the Alien Enemy Act, saying they've been conducting irregular warfare, when 2 years ago or whatever it was, Trump also said that's these same intel agencies that were conducting irregular warfare against American people for the last 7 years. Like, this is an overlap of those two things, in my opinion, although it's coming from Maduro, and depending on your interpretation of who he is in the grand scheme of dictators, he may not be a good guy, maybe a bad guy. Who knows? But why don't you?
I think he's neck and neck with Rocket Man for best dictator.
We'll get a good compilation of the best dictators later on.
Nice. Let's scroll down to the paragraph right above that little graphic right there. So, yep, there you are. So President Maduro emphasized that despite the efforts of Venezuelan security forces to dismantle the Tren de Aragua, some of its leaders have found refuge in the United States, raising questions about the complicity or inaction of U.S. authorities. They are protected by the DEA and the FBI as we speak. They are protected, stressed the president, suggesting that there is relevant information in Colombia and the United States about the gang's operations. And you remember a few weeks ago, we had the thing with President Petro of Colombia.
Yep. We also had the DEA getting folded into the FBI, didn't we? Didn't Kash Patel take over as acting director?
That the president also denounced the media campaign aimed at portraying the Tren de Aragua as a persistent threat, which, according to him, would serve as a pretext to justify new sanctions and aggressions against Venezuela. He firmly stated that such actions would not intimidate the Venezuelan people, assuring that the country will move toward harmony and development despite adversities. And then then we can skip over to the other one as well.
This one, Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro claims Biden moved Tren de Aragua into the United States. So again, keep thinking about what Trump's Alien Enemy Act just said and what is being claimed here. Because the transnational criminal organization aspect here is the Biden administration and people in our own intel agencies and government working with Tren de Aragua. They are targeted in this Alien Enemy Act, in my very serious, unprofessional opinion.
So let's scroll down to those bold quotes. And then, he's obviously speaking Spanish in this video, but this is some of the translation. He says, "I say to President Trump with respect, ask for the reports of the last 4 years from the FBI and the DEA, from the offices in Colombia, so that you can see, President Trump, who financed, who moved, who directed the famous Tren de Aragua, who brought it to Colombia, who brought it to the United States, and ask for the truthful reports so that you know that here in Venezuela, we defeated, dismembered, and put an end to that violent criminal group that used to be from Colombia with deep ties to the former Biden administration to bring terrorism to Venezuela.
I think I lied. Somebody caught me in the chat. It was who was it? Black Hat Destroyer. It was the ATF, not the DEA. So I lied.
Ah, good point. Yes.
Or I was wrong. So thank you for pointing that out. Black Hat Destroyer.
And I agree with you, so I was wrong too.
Yeah. It was mostly you, I'd say, than
Yeah,
more
could
than me.
be.
But no, this is so interesting to me because Maduro is calling out our own government. Trump called out our own government so many times over the years. He was at the DOJ the day before he signed this thing. It's so interesting to me. Could we actually see our own government being like not our own government? That's very broad to say, but people from within our own government or previous administrations, the people wielding the Autopen. Could we see some like exposure and their own involvement? Think back to Obama and the gun running stuff they were doing. Does that?
Yeah, they
does that-
basically armed the cartels.
Yeah.
As far as we're, led to understand. At this point, I am totally cognizant at all times of the possibility that however deep we think we have gotten in our understanding on an issue, like we could be exactly wrong all the time and find out like one more thing that flips us back into the opposite interpretation. It's very strange.
Man, yeah, and this is an interesting one. We've been looking at this Alien Enemy Act for a while, like literally since he first announced it back in September of 2023, and it's because of it requires a wartime declaration, and that alone is interesting. But then when you dig deeper on this thing and Trump's previous statements about the regular warfare, psychological warfare stuff, man, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maduro pointing out the same people.
Let's bring it back around one more time too. The Wikipedia entry on Tren de Aragua. I have it. Yep. So it says that the gang was based out of this prison, the Tocarón prison. Though Tocarón prison was taken by Venezuelan security forces in 2023, the leadership escaped and the gang's activities continue to this day. So
how's that possible?
Yeah, I guess probably with the help of the FBI and the DEA and the fake and illegitimate Biden administration, which is the stand-in proxy and avatar of the global regime, the foreign occupying government in the country. And so, through good twin, evil twin, the idea that like Venezuela is our enemy doesn't make any sense. Like there's factions in Venezuela who represent our enemy, and there's factions in Venezuela who do not represent our enemy. Just as there are factions in the United States of America that represent our enemy. And we are talking about one of those factions right now. And by the way, it could be factions within the FBI and the DEA. Hashtag not all FBI, right? Like, please don't sue us for defamation or whatever. And
Cash is going to sue us for other things, other reasons.
Yeah. So when he's talking about who is at war with us, well, it's the same foreign occupation that usurped the Constitution however many decades and or centuries ago. And they're directly involved here and being called out directly and dealt with directly. If these leaders are somehow being kept safe or whatever by these organizations, that would potentially make sense with the understanding that the ACLU and Democracy Forward went to court today to get the planes turned around.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Like they're suing to bring the terrorists back, essentially.
To remain under protection, apparently.
It's insane.
Insane,
and
yeah.
Like looking at what these people do, if you scroll down, or I'll share my screen. If you scroll down to their operations, like they got armed trafficking, bribery, drug trafficking, illegal mining, kidnapping for ransom, money laundering. Like, isn't this a lot of the stuff that like ISIS does overseas? Like, is this just the CIA funded version for the Central America, and we have a different CIA version in the Middle East, and then we have the Azov Battalion in Ukraine. I mean,
yeah, and
they're all over.
Go down a little bit further to the Peru part. We talked about this. You and I
yeah.
did it earlier.
This
It's
makes
just
no
this
sense.
one quick line. Yeah. So,
or no, that's not even it. I'll just read this whole thing. Due to Tren de Aragua's heavy presence in Lima, increased sentiments of xenophobia against Venezuelans and Peruvians resulted. Like what? Following clashes between Peruvians and Venezuelan migrants at the Gamara market in Lima, the Los Gallegos chapter of the Tren de Aragua,
Gallegos.
Yeah, I like my version better. Stating there will be no peace for Peruvians who support xenophobia. We will begin to kill all the Peruvian motorized people, threatening to kill Peruvian motor taxi drivers. In 2023 alone, at least 183 suspected members were arrested. The only time I ever hear people talking about xenophobia more than in this like one paragraph is when the media did it here over COVID. Like Trump's being xenophobic by telling people that it came from China.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a level of like wokeness that you would not generally expect from brutal cartel lords. And it immediately reminded me of the woke terrorist leader / dictator / president of Syria now.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Man, this is, I don't know. When did they start? Do we know that? In the early 2020s.
In the US, it says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gang operating. This is the gang that took over that Colorado apartment complex, right?
So we are told, yes.
Yeah, so we are told. I was in Colorado around that time. I went to a football game down there, and I didn't see one single Tren de Araguan. So maybe we're being lied to. I don't know.
Could be.
But yeah, this is just it's so interesting to me, and the legal battle is going to be interesting. I hope though that we get this solid interpretation and explanation of what Campbell versus Clinton is, because I think that extends to so many more things. But it's definitely, it's obviously going to be part of the argument here. It'd have to be. And this goes back to even the what were the cases, the prize cases after the Civil War, because that's where Campbell versus Clinton, they were quoting stuff from the prize cases back when Lincoln did the blockade on whoever it was, the Southern Army or whatever. It's all connected, guys, all the way back to then. And then we're going to delegitimize the 14th Amendment. And
yeah. Well, and we're also going to have an issue with judicial review on this case as it works its way through the courts. What say do they have about any of this? The answer is none. But the idea that the courts have an authoritative viewpoint on issues at all is founded in Marbury versus Madison. And that's going to have to be undone as well.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Could you imagine if, let's say back in August of 2001, President Bush tried to do the same thing and send bin Laden back to Afghanistan on a plane, and a judge stepped in and was like, nah, you can't do that. We're going to keep him here and under protective custody.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's in your authority, sir. Could you imagine? I mean, that's essentially what is kind of happening here.
It's so crazy. And, the courts don't have an enforcement mechanism. And ultimately, there is no enforcement mechanism because Trump has an obvious and overwhelming public mandate. The people are behind him. There is the only legitimacy government can have arises from the consent of the governed. And you can't just have branches of the government defying not only the Constitution, but the people's representative who is there with an obvious and overwhelming mandate and expect the country to last. And it's funny, we saw that clip earlier of Trump talking about how if we don't have borders and we don't have elections, and there was one other thing, we can't have a country anymore. And he says it like it's starting to sound a little more serious.
Yeah, that's right. I had a thought there. What was the first thing you said? I lost it by your other great points. What was the first thing you said after I stopped talking? Dang it.
The judicial review.
Oh, the enforcement mechanism. The courts don't have an enforcement mechanism. The only enforcement mechanism they have is if they agree with the executive branch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if the president doesn't agree with them, like the law enforcement side of things isn't going to enforce it.
Yeah. They're just supposed to give opinions on whether or not something is constitutional. That's it. They just give opinions. And we have like been indoctrinated to believe that their opinions immediately constitute law as soon as they hand them down. Like that we are like visiting the oracle over at the Supreme Court. And once the people in black robes have chosen, that's all there is to it. It's, again, 10th Amendment Center is amazing on this stuff and has been particularly amazing over the last few weeks, talking about processes of nullification and the rest of it. Like the court's like not allowed to hand down opinions that are in direct violation of the language of the Constitution. And if they do that, no one is required to respect those decisions. We're in such an inversion of what the country was actually built to be, what the Constitution was designed to do. And, we've talked about this many times. Some of the problems with the Constitution were forced into it, like the things that would eventually subvert the Constitution itself and lead us to this place right now were built into it from the beginning by people who had the regime influencing the situation and the outcome. But yeah, none of this stuff is supposed to exist. Like we are in an inverted form of our own government. It's the opposite of how it's supposed to be. So protecting the Constitution actually requires us to dismantle the federal government as it exists now.
Yeah, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, everybody. It's a great point, though. Like, if there's a ruling issue that is in direct, opposition to what the Constitution says, you should just ignore it. But we're in this like, okay, well, let's watch and see how this plays through the court, because one judge happens to disagree, and that there's no way it should be that way.
Yeah,
but Trump's playing along with that. That's the thing. That's like he's kind of playing along with it in some of this other stuff anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to know what we're dealing with, right? We can't just like, I think that I've said it on this show. I've said it on my show a million times. Like we're going to win no matter what, right? The people are clearly going in one direction. Donald Trump is able to communicate to the American public very effectively. And in doing that over time, the public's opinion becomes really well refined and solidified and obvious to everyone. So I'm happy to see these things go through the courts, like draw the lines on the field, get the rule book settled. Don't care how it is. I just want to know that all of this stuff is clearly defined so that we can then go out and play the game and win no matter what the set of rules is. Like that's how optimistic I am about our ability to do that. Let's go through the process and find out. What if the Supreme Court itself is illegitimate?
Which it very well is. I mean, very well could be. But
we have at least one Supreme Court justice, so-called, who was put on the court by a fake and illegitimate president. At least one.
Sounds a little racist there, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, well,
no, I'm just kidding. What do you think that is for, though? So allowing this stuff to play out and get those lines drawn, like Trump's got to be allowing that to happen for a purpose, right? I mean, I don't think it'd be for the normies necessarily. I just don't like using that excuse anymore. Like we're just doing it for the normies, I mean, I guess it very well possibly could be that's the reason. I just don't like it. And so my own personal preference is to not allow myself to use that as an excuse anymore. There's got to be something bigger going on. And so what could that be? Maybe there is no other explanation.
I think that Donald Trump and the military are upholding the oath to the Constitution, the original Constitution, and they are engaged in a process to unwind all this long train of usurpations all the way back to the Constitution. And I think it's a brilliant project. I think that you can see it moving right along if you are tracking that thing rather than just imagining all these issues just arising out of nowhere in our corrupt courts and blah, blah, blah. this is a very directed process toward undoing all of these things over time. And then when the historical record is laid down, we'll see very clearly that, you'll see the process from the original Constitution all the way up to this total abomination that we have now. And then you'll be able to track it all the way back. And so I think that it makes sense from that level. Like in terms of waking up the normies, that is a nice added bonus when and if it happens. But the process being recorded properly to be able to do it on the real layer and that false reality layer so that people can understand in that narrative only sense that all this stuff is being done by the book, even though we're not on the book.
Yeah. That's a very interesting, and that makes me think of what you said earlier about the Marbury versus Madison. Like if the whole point of this is to eventually get that overturned as unconstitutional, the ramifications of that would be profound. I mean, first of all, but yeah, I mean, if that's what they're doing here, you kind of got to do it in a way that anybody can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, well, they didn't mince around here. They did what they were supposed to do, like you said, on both layers.
Yeah, I mean, we have a situation now where the courts basically are the supreme ruling authority in our country and have been for a long time. And this is part of the regime system. This is a thing that they like to do. And, so much of the government as it exists now and the functions of government as we've been indoctrinated to believe are legitimate stems from the 14th Amendment. I mean, we've talked a number of times about George P. Fletcher and his book, Our Secret Constitution. There are actually a few other books that make the same arguments. His argument was that the Reconstruction Amendments were specifically designed to invert the original Constitution. And he argued that the Civil War was fought specifically to overthrow the Constitution and replace it with another one. And the reason all of that is held up is because of judicial review.
And I'm pretty sure, I think we talked about this before, but Lincoln was opposed to a lot of those Reconstruction amendments, and then he got assassinated and it got pushed through.
It's also interesting.
Very interesting. All right, man. Anything else you want to say on that? I'm very excited about this Alien Enemy Act thing. It just hits on so many things we've talked about for a long time. And I don't know, it's exciting to see it here now. It wasn't quite day one like we were told it would be, but hey, that's cool. He did other things leading up to this. He kind of built the foundation for it on day one with the invasion executive order and the foreign terrorist organizations. And then now we finally got this. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, into it.
Yeah, man. Let's see what else I had pulled up here to talk about, because that might actually be.
Well, we got crying Chuck too.
Oh yeah. Well, first let's do Kellogg, because this is an interesting one. He posted this today, and I was super confused. This is what he said. He said, first he put a picture of Trump's truth. Okay, no date or anything on here. And so I was thinking this was the first truth that Trump posted back in like November, where he named him as special envoy. And this says, I am pleased to inform you that the General Keith Kellogg has been appointed special envoy to Ukraine. General Kellogg, a highly respected military expert, will deal directly with President Zelensky and Ukrainian leadership. He knows them well, and they have a very good working relationship together. Congratulations to General Kellogg. It's like weird. He's been in that position for a while. Keith Kellogg retweets it and says, I'm deeply honored and humbled by President Trump's confidence in appointing me as special envoy to Ukraine. I've been privileged to have known real Donald Trump since 2015, and he will end this war. It is an honor to serve our great nation and advance the vital interests of the United States, America first. So my understanding was, why would did he get fired? Because why would he post this again? He's been in that position. Well, it turns out after minimal research that he was previously the special envoy to both Ukraine and Russia, but supposedly Russia didn't like him. And so Trump's like, okay, well, then you're just going to be the special envoy to Ukraine now, which I just find the whole thing weird and funny.
Well, and he sent Witkoff to Russia.
Yep.
And did you see the story about how supposedly Trump actually truthed about it as well, talking about the fake news and how they had reported that there was a delay and that Witkoff was kept waiting for 8 hours. Yeah. It's actually a pretty interesting story on that side of it too, because they said that Lukashenko, the president of Belarus came in for an unannounced state visit, and that's what held them up time-wise for that long. So
yeah, this is that truth post.
Yeah.
Fake news, as usual, is at it again. Why can't they be honest for once? Last night I read that President Vladimir Putin of Russia kept my highly respected ambassador and special envoy Steve Witkoff waiting for over 9 hours when, in fact, there was no wait whatsoever. Other meetings with the other representatives of Russia did take place, and obviously they took some time, but they were very productive. From there, things went quickly and efficiently, and all signs seem to be hopefully very good. In conclusion, there was no 9-hour wait or any wait at all. The only reason they made up that story is to try and demean, because they are sick degenerates that have to start reporting the news correctly. This is why they've lost all the ratings, their audience, and respect. You guys, Steve Witkoff walked in that door and went straight to the office. Didn't even stop at the secretary's desk. Just went right in. There was no wait. Fake news is lying to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. We didn't get word on the peace deal, though. Did they agree?
No. I guess he's got Putin's terms and he's returning to America to relay them to the president, who has probably already made all these deals with Putin.
He most certainly has. And they've been telling us what the deals are, like in terms of how it relates to Ukraine. No NATO. We get our country back. It's
been the same thing the whole time. Yeah. Burning Bright posted about it, I think today, maybe yesterday. Yeah, the whole time. It's always been
not changed. But one thing we do need to worry about is the fact that Russia, China, and Iran are doing military exercise together. And this is what Trump had to say.
China and Iran are doing military exercises together. Does that concern you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Why not?
Because we're stronger than all of them. We have more power than all of them. I rebuilt the military. Unfortunately, Biden did nothing with it, but I rebuilt the military. But we don't want to even talk about that. I think
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because, there's speculation that Trump is working with 2 of those 3 countries.
And both of those countries are working with Iran.
Yeah. And now Trump is working with Iran. Well, they're potentially negotiating peace with Iran because Saudi Arabia is going to mediate between that.
Yeah. Well, he also sent a letter last week, a very nice letter. I think he sent letters to the Ayatollah.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Dear John letters to the Ayatollah. Love it.
He talked about it. I don't know if maybe you can find it in the Maria Bartiromo interview from last weekend, but didn't he send a letter to Rocket Man way back in the day? And that started there after he called him Little Rocket Man and said the thing about the big red button, and then Rocket Man called him a dotard.
I don't remember that.
Oh man.
Let me see if I can find. Okay, so I got the Bartiromo interview up. Should I search for letters?
Letter. So the machine says Trump sent several letters to Kim Jong-un during his presidency. Between 2018 and 2019, Trump and Kim exchanged 27 letters, which included both formal diplomatic messages and more personal notes.
Okay, I found I'm going to do a couple. Let's do this. I'm going to back up a little bit.
No, I was tough. At the same time, I got along with Putin. I got along with Kim Jong-un. I got along with President Xi. But nobody was tougher, like on China, than I was.
And then there are reports now that Russia says it will help the United States negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran. What kind of a deal with Iran do you want to do? You said they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. Well, there are 2 ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I would prefer to make a deal because I'm not looking to hurt Iran. They're great people. I know so many Iranians from this country.
Well, not the leadership.
No, not the leadership.
The people.
They're very evil people. No, but the people of Iran are great people. But they had a tough regime, and they'd meet and they'd be shot in the streets. I mean, it was a tough deal. But I would rather negotiate a deal. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily. But the time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter, saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini.
Yes.
When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you said you better negotiate, or we want you to
I didn't
negotiate?
say you better. I said,
Okay.
I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
You said you wanted to do the Golden Dome. You've got a lot of ideas for America. But then earlier you said you wanted to cut $1 trillion in defense spending, right?
I didn't say I was.
You did not get it. So I was like, which is it? Are you cutting defense spending, or are you building us up?
I never said defense spending.
Okay, because I think you were talking about denuclearization,
Correct.
and that's where the cutting of the spending came in.
I never.
She just make that up. We don't even spend $1 million in defense, or $1 trillion in defense at this point. We're getting close, but weird. But yeah, that's interesting. Sent a letter. Do you see he bombed the Houthis today?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Allegedly.
he announced, yes.
Like there's videos.
Yeah, I'm really wondering about that. There's also stories from just a few weeks ago. I was looking at, or maybe it was just this past week. It was March 13th. Yes, it was just on Thursday. There was an article in CNN. Actually, I might as well just pull it up here.
Might as well, man.
The return of Eric Prince, how a notorious military contractor maneuvered his way back inside Trump's orbit. And so that, this was about him helping with the deportations or whatever, but he also apparently proposed, where is it? I think it's down in here somewhere, but he had a thing that he wanted to do. There it is. With the Houthis. So the Houthis, I think that's how they say it. Houthis, Houthi and the Blowfish. I guess
if I had a terrorist group, that'd be what I'd name it. Houthi and the Blowfish. What did he say though?
This was just kind of outlining his approach, that he has all these various plans for how to handle different kind of hotspot issues.
Because didn't I see that he presented a plan or proposal to get basically citizen militant groups to help get immigrants out or something? Wasn't that like a week or so ago? And everybody's like, oh, Blackwater's back in the news, but he doesn't even own Blackwater anymore, and it was a completely different thing.
Yeah, Blackwater became Academy, and I think maybe it even changed since then, but he doesn't own it anymore. It was so weird how that thing took off, and everybody was just saying, oh, Eric Prince from Blackwater. Like, what?
Yeah. Did you see, I know you saw, because I sent it to you. So this was interesting too. The Pentagon asked for military options to access Panama Canal. And this is on the heels of, it's super weird. The whole BlackRock purchasing a couple ports down there. And the stories were that it was basically Trump who helped them get access to those ports. And apparently it's just like two of, I don't even know how many ports are down there. But Trump really wants the Panama Canal, and now the military must work to provide options to ensure the United States has full access to the Panama Canal. Could be fake news, anonymous sources. But President Donald Trump has said repeatedly he wants to take back the canal, which is located at the northwest part, blah, blah, blah. But he has not offered specifics about how he would do so, or if military action might be required. It's just interesting, this rumor is floating out there on the heels of Blackwater being in the mix down there,
Wait, BlackRock, you mean, right?
BlackRock, whatever, one of the black things.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I speculate, and that's all it is. I have no way of proving this, that BlackRock may be a drainage vehicle at this point. So, I mean, either that or they're just going to absolutely own everything. And maybe that's just the way of the world.
Yeah. But I mean, in line with some of the stuff that you've speculated over the years, how Elon Musk bought Twitter, was that really him, or is he just the front for some sort of bigger operation to get control of the most important information warfare tool in existence?
Yeah.
That somehow bans all the people, and
if
use
you
algorithms to suppress the people speaking truth. But
right. If you were going to nationalize major companies who were involved in the overthrow of the American government, crimes against humanity, crimes against America, there has to be a punishment for organizations like that in order for society to ever return to some sense of normalcy without being run by an international criminal enterprise. And so if that's the case, then you would need some kind of umbrella to put it all under. And then eventually we'll see a story about how a monopoly is being broken up. And then all of those assets will be reprivatized. So that's how I look at it. And you consider how much land they own in America, how many like single family homes, all the things that they have been purchasing over the last few years, especially, but decade.
Yeah. I mean, if they were a criminal organization to begin with, taking it over and speculating, of course, in the fashion that we speculate it may have been, makes sense. But then also what they're doing with the Bitcoin ETF stuff makes that more interesting. The purchasing and acquiring the land and who they're buying it from, the Panama Canal, who knows? I mean, we should probably like do a little dig on them and see what they've actually done over the past couple of years. Maybe since around the time that Trump left office, or maybe before, I don't know. Because that could be an interesting little dig. We'll have to look into that.
I mean, there has to be unless organizations like BlackRock and the global regime are in total control, and I don't think that's the case. I don't know how else it makes sense.
Yeah.
BlackRock is not just going to be allowed to dictate how things go in the Panama Canal. It's very clear that this is a military necessity as far as Donald Trump is concerned. And there's not going to be anything. The idea that something's going to stand in the way of those projects seems crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're going to win it all, like you said earlier, we need to see justice and people being punished for some of these things, and people like BlackRock and all the other companies out there that were part of the TCOs, right? Working with the cartels and doing all this bad shit everywhere. They can't just be allowed to exist anymore, let alone exist in the same capacity they have been for the past 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it's been. No, I think you're absolutely right about that. Anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think so.
Before we do rants, we go through a lot. I feel like
forgetting anything.
We did the Autopen. Oh, Trump did have a Truth Social post about the Autopen. That was pretty good. The person who, let me pull it up. The person who was the real president during the Biden years was the person who controlled the Autopen. So that's a good one.
Person who was the real president during the Biden years was the person who controlled the Autopen.
Yeah.
So that's him.
Yeah, I'd say so. Where we were kind of having his second term, right then.
Yeah.
He just didn't want the credit. As he said, that is a direct quote. We did the Alien Enemy Act. We did wartime powers. Kind of touched on Arctic frost, even though I still didn't even fully understand what that meant. Trump with the DOJ. Yeah, I think we're good, man. Let's get to some rants. Guys, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up. We'll go through the rants and the boosts. Those are always a good time. Don't forget to get your GART tickets to Plymouth. They're now available. And then after Plymouth, there's like a longer break again, not till August. So if you don't want to have be jonesing for a GART, better come to Plymouth. Should be a good time.
Did you see Ash's comment?
No, I didn't. I tried to ignore her. But what'd she say?
I feel like you didn't spend enough time on John's love triangle with Una Panuna Banca and Bobert.
I don't know. I just don't want to give her too much, attention.
Who's that, Ash or Una Panuna?
No, Una Panuna. Ash
well, the more attention you give her, the more attention she gives you.
Well, actually, I feel like it's the reverse because I took a break. I was like it had almost been a week since I had talked shit about her fake subcommittee. And she must have noticed it because then all of a sudden she comes and steals a post. So I feel like it's like the playground flirting, man. You're just mean to the people that you're in love with. And this is the stage we're in right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll have to get back to give it a shit. But yeah, the Lauren Boebert or Boebert, I can't remember how you pronounce it.
Haboob.
Yeah. Her commenting on it as well. It's just weird. Just weird day yesterday in general. Okay, let's do the boosts. Let's see. A couple boosts here on our Badlands website, badlandsmedia.tv. Click on support or click on boosts, and you can leave just like a rant, but you don't have to be watching live to give it. You can give it afterwards, and we'll read it next week. From Reverend Chris, my cat Luna is not impressed with me singing Una Paluna Banca. Also, the debt appears to have some new stuff on it, including hidden wealth. Oh yeah, Schumer passed the spending bill. We didn't shut down. We forgot to even talk about that. Sounds exciting. ADC says the judge is a comical clown. The president, who has plenary executive power, cannot invoke the Alien Enemies Act for mass migration of illegal aliens. It's hard to take them seriously as a qualified judge. Well, they're not. They're activists in black robes. Lionheart 7777 says, "Hey guys, had a great today celebrating wife's B-Day. Happy birthday to your wife. And got to red pill a family friend about Ukraine, Vegas shooting, and MK Ultra. God's work one day at a time. Keep up the fight. We need you. God bless AOG." Thank you for that rant. That's awesome. It's always fun to red pill people. Joe Biden's football.com says, "Patrick, if you're listening, I miss you more than Michael Bay missed the mark when he made Pearl Harbor." That's a good rant. I think that's all of them from I think that's all. These are from last week when we were in guard. From Acapaldi. "Hey John, want to say congrats, following you since your first public speaking in Las Vegas. Proud of you and the team you put together. Never in chats, not able to donate. I would like to. 38-year husband, 4 kids, 1 income. We'll be at next guard. It's my B-Day wish. Huge fan. Looking forward to meeting you." And then one more. March 7th, ADC. "Thought this day would never come. Last Wednesday, the bright surrection." Oh, we did read this. "And Sovereign Alliance overthrew John, the beginning of a new golden age, or is John literally entering a devolution phase with plans for reconstitution later?"
It's a good question.
It is a good question. I was just traveling though, so figured let the two people who love to talk the most get some time to talk to each other for a little bit without me having to sit there and listen to it. Okay, rants. Let's do it. Man, you guys have been very generous tonight. Tess Ved. Some call it the Faith Monument. Kirk Cameron did a whole video on it. Okay, that's the thing I was talking about. The big statue or whatever. There it is. We'll have to go visit it, man.
That is a big statue.
The way it was described to me, it was like it was in the middle of some rural neighborhood, like just in the middle of town, like in the middle of a street. And I don't see many houses around here, but whatever. Still going to go see it. S. Hole. Chris Christie has a new book coming out, Art of the Squeal. Satire. He's just a fat pig. Love that.
Chris Christie is not a fat pig.
He would never say that.
Never
call him that. S. Jones 39. "Will this get you to play it again? Thanks, John and Chris, for all you do." It will get us. Thank you for that, S. Jones. Ekim Navilis. "Jovan did kinematic artifact work on the AZ audit." I do remember that. I just didn't know if we saw the final report. Guy 5867. "Overlay ghost sleeping at the White House press conference, like leaning on Peter Doocy, or better yet, Chanel Rion." Those memes have been great, by the way. I don't know if you've seen those, Chris. Melindy. "Jovan continues to hold all the forensic evidence from Arizona. Y'all should interview him." Yes, we should. We'll reach out. Thank you for that. Micro Toolmaker, $117. Thank you, sir. "Wish my parents were alive to see us taking our country back. Where we go one, we go all." Very generous. Babbage 3, Auntie Panini Lumber.
I think that's as close as you can get to a Panuna Banca.
Yeah. The other day when I typed it, it auto-corrected Panuna to Panini as well. Thought it was funny. 1027 JS. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Joe. Nice to see you. Doctor in name only for $50. Tacticalcivics.com is a solution for we the people, collectively sovereign, to enforce the Constitution one county at a time, including restoring our first right of representation, 1 rep per 50,000.
Cool. Tactical Civics, is that what it says?
Tacticalcivics.com, yeah. Okay, 1 per 50,000 though. Is that the thing CanCon was talking about, like 9,400 reps?
I'll check that in just a second. Also, just said we should interview Jovan. If anyone out there is in touch with Michael Bolden and the 10th Amendment Center, I would love to talk to that guy. Just putting it out there, letting the people do their thing that they do.
Yeah, have them reach out. Valseco 16. Sorry. Donald said when he first got to DC, he knew nobody. Now he knows them all, the good, the bad, the ugly. So any Fauci exposure op is unacceptable. Pam Bondi better not be more BS exposure. I would agree with you. I totally agree with you. But who knows? Trump operates at a different level than we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to call it the bullshit when we see it and not forgive it away. Lucy the dog.
30,000 is the answer, by the way. One rep per every 30,000 people.
And how many reps would that be?
Well, I mean,
325 million.
I mean, I don't think our population's actually anywhere near that, but we could take that and assume it.
Let's assume it.
I think it's got to be like 10,000 ish, over 10,000, 30 by 330 million.
Yeah. This one, 10,833 or something like that.
That 10,833. That sounds about right. Yeah, this says around 11,000. 330 million by 30,000 is 11,000.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you did 325, that's going to be
Yeah, that's. Oh, could you imagine? Can you imagine like congressional bullshit, C-SPAN coverage of that? It'd be a nightmare. I don't even know how you do it. So no, thank you. Do not sign me up for that. Lucy the dog. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
We could have a whole army of Una Panuna Bonkas.
Yeah, that's my nightmare, bro.
Huh.
She became, because of her whole D-class committee op thing, she became my least favorite congressperson for at least a week there. But now we're in love. It was a great love story, so it worked out. Custard 1. Good day. As an Aussie, be grateful if you could kindly comment on Donald J. Trump's post on Truth 7 days ago when he mentioned former Aussie PM Malcolm Turnbull, calling him weak and ineffective. Why now? Russia? ?
I don't know about Russia, but the British Commonwealth is collapsing. So
yeah, that's true.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I missed that. So Keith O'Higgins, the TDA proclamation. By the way, did you meet Keith Edgard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Good time. I think the TDA proclamation just validates his power to confiscate cartel assets to build up the Bitcoin reserves, follow the money and their lawyers. There you go. G-Money would agree with you, and I think I do too. Drop 14. Operation Arctic Frost was the name given to an investigation led by Senator Ron Johnson, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, into Hunter Biden and his business dealings. Now, this is something different, I think, based on the Grassley letter. Drop 14, including those in Ukraine and China. Denise Ann 2, it's normal to put a bond down on cases where money is involved. Good logic. Did a fantastic breakdown on his Rumble channel several weeks ago when the lawsuits first started. He recommended Trump's team to do this to stop the ridiculous CRIs. Highly recommend taking a look at this video. I shall do that. Justice.gov B Plunkett 11. Statement Attorney General Pamela Bondi, judge blocking deportations. This must be new because I haven't seen this. Have you?
I don't believe I have. No.
Oh, by the way, did you want to put out your Substack?
Oh, I dropped it in the chat earlier.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from today. Statement from Bondi. Tonight, a DC trial judge supported Tren de Aragua terrorists over the safety of Americans. TDA is represented by the ACLU. This order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power, and it puts public and law enforcement at risk. The Department of Justice is undeterred in its efforts to work with the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again. No, I guess it is a statement. Doesn't carry any weight to it, I guess, but thank you for sharing. Keith O'Higgins, I don't know if I can trust a woman like Bondi to head up money laundering operations. Those chicks always want to add fabric softeners. Wedge Gravy, the Constitution was written for the states. It is meant to be the arbiter between them. We, the people, were given rights and budgetary control. Its original intent has been completely perverted.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Lynn Yoda, we all poo-pooed the whole 1871 thing. There was an interesting, understandable, and very long article about it in the Gateway Pundit. Reading it made me think that maybe it is all true. Your thoughts? I don't know anymore. The people presenting it and the way they presented it and the evidence they showed for it did nothing for me. But it doesn't mean it's not true. Who knows? We did a whole episode on basis conspiracies on this.
Yeah, and it also just might not be that particular mechanism that like accounts for all of it. Like the claim might be true and overstated.
Very much so. Just like devolution, right? Like we think devolution is something's going on. We call it devolution. It might not be everything that is going on. It's just like what we phrase as. Who knows? I don't know, man. A lot of people believe in that 1871 thing. I just never got on board.
Well, it's certainly
right
true
about everything.
Right. But it's certainly true that the country was usurped in that period in the Reconstruction. So
no, you're
the mechanism I think is less relevant than the understanding that the Constitution was absolutely overthrown during that period.
Yeah. And honestly, like the 1871 stuff and the way it was presented, it makes people look at the fact that the country was usurped and be like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if anything, I almost feel like it's a way to get people to not look further into whether or not it was actually usurped, which it totally was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could be.
The real Mega Mama, Elon posted who owned the most shares in Tesla. BlackRock is the second largest shareholder. Could this be notable for Panama Canal?
Could be notable for many things.
Could be. Keekster 317, thanks for another great show. Thank you, Keekster. And then another 179 says thanks. And we say thanks right back. And that is all of them.
All right.
So there we go. We're going to end with the same video we ended with on Wednesday. Chris is the one who surfaced that thing.
The greatest dictators in the world.
Absolutely. So you guys have a great rest of your evening. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And we'll see you next time we see you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, oh, it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We are all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There is a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. Well, send them your heart, so they know that someone cares, and the lives will be stronger and free. As God has shown us, by turning stone to bread, and so we all must lend a helping hand. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There is a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. We're down and out, and there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall. Well, let's realize, oh, that a change can only come when we stand together as one. Yeah. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making.
We